I've spent the last 5 years essentially deep diving into why we doubt ourselves. I have a credibility wound. I constantly feel like if someone tries to attack my credibility.
Imagine being her parents and educating her so much for her to now have not very deep conversations online with influencers. This felt like therapy.
I'm glad. There was this study done with silver and bronze medalists. They found that silver medalists are not happy.
Oh my God.
People who experience Botox don't experience as negative moods because their face is not reinforcing how they feel.
Hello and welcome back to the show. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Sheen, your host, and this is the Dream Girl podcast. We're currently filming in the Pen by Marina Pearl, my studio. My guest today is someone I have been following online for at least 5 years. Dr. Shadé Zahrai is a globally recognized leadership strategist, peak performance educator, author, and consultant. She helps individuals, Fortune 500 companies, optimize human potential by applying behavioral science and psychology to career growth and confidence. A former lawyer with an MBA and PhD, she co-runs Influence CEO Global, creates viral content online, is a TEDx speaker, and authored Big Trust, focusing on empowering people to overcome self-limits and build self-trust. If you have ever struggled with confidence, this is the video you have been looking for. Hello, Shadé.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too. And I feel like we've already had a whole episode.
We have.
But listen, I just want to tell you, I didn't tell you how I found you the first time. So you remember how you started content around COVID time? So did I. And the first video I saw of you was when you were like, do you struggle saying no? And I was like, oh my God, who is this? Why is she calling me out? And then I remember watching, and I remember you were so clear, and it was a reel, and you gave like 3 tips. And I was like, how did she fit all of this in 1 minute? How did she say it like that? And I fell in love with your content. And at the time I was in corporate job as well. And I remember you started saying, take a pause when someone asks you something. And I was like, wow, all of these things. I was like, look at me, I'm going to become like this big corporate girl now. And then obviously we left that life behind. But it was so good to see you. And I first time I messaged you was July 2022.
I've seen that message.
Big fan.
Amazing. I love when opportunities happen like that, right? So you connect and then life happens and then you reconnect in a completely different space.
Correct. And we actually briefly met in Sharjah a few years ago. And I'm so glad that now we're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
I want to say, first of all, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
How does it feel to see it here?
It feels incredible. I think anytime you pour yourself into anything, it can be a business, in my case, it's a book, it's a really surreal feeling to get to the end and see it in some kind of tangible form. And just because this, the book is essentially what I wish I had 10 years ago as that shy people pleaser in corporate, questioning everything. I wish I knew what I now know back then. So essentially I wrote it for me then, but I've realized so many other people doubt themselves. So many people live their lives, their careers, questioning if they belong, if they're good enough. They say yes when they want to say no. They don't speak up in meetings because they've got that voice in their head saying this is not good enough, people will judge you. So that's essentially why I wrote it.
I love it. Yeah. And honestly, I told you, I bought a copy because I knew we were going to sit together and it was in my office. And then one of my friends came in and being like, oh my God, I've been looking for this book. Can I take it? And then she took it and I was like, I needed it for the show. But okay, I guess it's gone. But see, we're helping more people.
Exactly.
But I want to tell you, so we both have PhDs. And I feel like when it comes to content, a lot of times you have to filter it to make it a little bit more into sound bites. But I want this to be a geeky conversation.
Done. Let's nerd out.
Nerd out.
I'm so excited.
Go deep into the research, the facts, the stories. And I love your stories. Please throw them in as much as you can. And the reason I ask is because our audience is primarily women. And a lot of times the questions we get is, how are you so confident? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? First of all, I have a big issue with even the term imposter syndrome. And I think this will be very valuable for a lot of people. And I've listened to your other episodes and I know you say treat this like a masterclass, but I want us to get really deep into it, especially the emotional aspect of it all, because I think that's where we struggle with like the regulation of the emotions. So my first question to you, which you kind of touched on already a little bit, is was there a version of Shadé before this confident version that we know?
I would argue that the confident version that you know has a deeper foundation of second guessing and doubting and feeling like an imposter And something that I've learned, so I've spent the last 5 years essentially deep diving into why we doubt ourselves and what drives that sense of hesitation and overthinking. And why is it that there are some people who can set a goal and achieve it without letting that voice get in their way? And what I've learned is that the goal is not to quieten the doubt. The goal is not to eliminate the doubt. The doubt is just a sign that your brain is doing what it's meant to do. The goal is recognizing that, hey, I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to become that thought. I can acknowledge it, decide what to do with it, and then take action anyway. And so what I would suggest is that anyone who's trying to eliminate the voice of doubt, wrong goal. How do you strengthen parts of yourself so that the doubt doesn't cling on to you and instead it just washes off? In fact, I'm going to use an analogy. So we have two glasses here, right? Let's imagine that they're both filled up with water. And then I have a golf ball, which is quite heavy, and a ping pong ball. Do you call it ping pong here or table tennis?
Ping pong as well.
Ping pong or either or, right? And that one's very light. If I take the ping pong ball, the light ball, and I place it on top of one of the glasses of water, what happens to the water?
It just stays the same.
It stays the same and the ball kind of
floats. Yeah.
What about the golf ball? If I place the golf ball in the water, what happens?
It goes down, the water rises.
Water rises or spills out. So I like to think of doubt like this. That ping pong ball, the light one, is really how our experience or our relationship with doubt should be. It floats on the surface. We see that it's there, but we don't internalize it. Whereas where too many of us struggle is that our doubt is like a golf ball. It's heavy. And we internalize it. We allow it to mean something about ourselves. Now, not only that, what would happen if with the one with the golf ball, if we then carefully take out the golf ball, so there's no more golf ball, has the water miraculously replaced itself?
No, because what's spilled is already gone.
Exactly. And so what we find is that a lot of people who have that deep centric doubt, they lose a part of themselves. And even if they start developing the ability to detach from the thought, they still don't trust who they are, because they've lost that instinct to trust who they are. And so this whole journey that we go on, everything that I put in the book, it's really recognizing that, the goal is not to eliminate the doubt. It's to learn to manage the thoughts better, acknowledge that they're there, see them like the golf ball floating on top of who you are, but strengthen the parts of yourself that need strengthening. And so the next question is, okay, well, which parts need strengthening? How do we know specifically what we need to strengthen in ourselves to be more resistant to doubt having the effect, the negative effect?
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
So I'm going to share with you a study from the 70s, and I share this all the time because it's so relevant and it helps us understand this whole space.
Let's hear it.
So 1970s, a psychology professor by the name of Robert Kleck conducted this fascinating experiment with students. He brought them into a lab and he drew a scar, or he split them into groups. And with one of the groups, he drew a scar on their face, on the right side of their face. He let them see themselves in a mirror so they can confirm, yes, there's a scar. Bear in mind, this is all happening individually, so they're not in a group with a scar on their face. They come into a private room, have the scar applied. Now, right before he lets them out, so the idea was all these groups would then go out and have a conversation with a stranger.
Oh.
And they had to be paying attention to how they feel they're treated. Okay. So he draws this scar, but right before he releases them to have these conversations, he says, I'm going to apply some moisturizing cream on the scar to set it so it doesn't crack.
Right.
But he actually removes the scar entirely. And he doesn't let them he doesn't let them see in a mirror what's going on. So they think they have a scar.
Right.
They go and they have these conversations. They're coming back, they're saying, yeah, I was treated differently. Yeah, it was tense. I was judged. There was no scar. It was entirely in their heads. And this is what we call expectation bias. So you don't see the world as it is. You experience it as you expect it to be. And so when we think about the implications of that for us in our lives, all of us have these subconscious scars that we have developed from childhood, whether it's we doubt our voice, we doubt our worth, we feel like we need to apologize, we don't feel like we're good enough, we feel like we're a burden. And these scars influence how we believe other people will treat us. And then that's what we notice, even if it doesn't exist. We find a way to confirm that initial belief. It's called self-verification. So we have a desire for people to see us the way that we see ourselves, and we're not even aware of it.
Wow.
It's fascinating. And when we think, okay, so then the next stage is for us as women, when we're going into a meeting or a pitch or on stage, if we deep down don't believe that we're capable, don't believe that we're worthy, feel like we're going to bore other people, we're going to hone in on anything that confirms it. So I had this client very early on. I don't do coaching anymore, but her name was Taylor. She was a senior leader in the telecommunications industry. And she had a deep scar that made her feel like she had to keep proving herself to everybody. And she felt like she wasn't enough as she was, which is so common. A lot of us have this experience. And it was showing up at work, of course, but where it was really interesting was it was also showing up in her personal life. So she kept sharing that when she would have a conversation with a friend, if that friend glanced at her phone for a second, sometimes we get a text message and
you just check it.
In Taylor's mind, she was saying to herself, oh, I'm boring this person. She's not interested. She doesn't care about me because I'm not enough.
Wow.
And that was not what was happening at all. Her friend was probably just checking, are the kids okay? Was that my husband? And so this is how our experience is shaped by the stories that we tell. And so often those stories are not true. They're just perceptions based on our expectation, based on the scars that we carry.
Wow. Okay. So, something just popped into my mind when you said that. So I recently started wearing this sleep tracker ring.
Oh, Aura?
This is Ultra Human. And I woke up and I looked at it. I looked at my data and it told me that I barely slept last night. It was really like poor quality sleep. And I was like, great, today is going to be a drag. And then I approached my day with that mindset that I will be tired today. And it was so bad. Every time I was like, my head is going to hurt now. I'm too tired. I'm dehydrated. I'm this. And then I was like, this is useless. This is really impacting how I approach my day. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
I had to stop wearing my watch, my tracking watch, for that exact reason.
See?
I was waking up in the morning going, how is my day going to be? Let me check how much deep sleep I got. And I would let that influence me as opposed to tapping into what am I actually feeling. Perfect example.
And no, you're right. And we do go out looking for confirmation of all of our doubts, right? Okay. The reason I asked that initial question was because I think it's important to reiterate that a lot of times people assume that if you're outwardly confident when they've interacted with you, that you are a confident person. Doesn't mean you don't experience self-doubt and doesn't mean that you've eradicated it. Do you think it's possible to even get rid of self-doubt forever?
I think it's not necessarily the doubt that you need, we need to be thinking about it as thoughts. So doubt is a thought, which is based on a belief. And that is only a problem if it affects how you feel and if it affects what you do. If you're able to sever it there and you just have the thought, then it's completely okay. And in fact, part of my research was looking at, when we experience something, we call it a demand in the research world. So it's any kind of stress or high pressure situation or a situation where you're about to step onto the stage or speak or there's some kind of stimulus. And then we experience a critical voice. Most people have a critical voice, but not all of them experience the negative impacts on their work and their relationships and their career satisfaction. So what's happening between the critical voice and the negative impact? And what my study found is that it's action orientation. I won't go into the detail, but what that is, it's a collection of traits that allow you to, as the name suggests, take action anyway. Take action anyway. And so, again, there's a lot that exists in the world about how you need to fundamentally change your thoughts and change the beliefs. And yes, that's important. But if you can just learn to sever the belief and take the action anyway, you start to get the proof points that, hey, I can do this. You start to update that sense of self-identity that you have, the self-concept, the self-image. And that's how you slowly start to heal those scars that you have through showing up, proving to yourself you can do it. And even if it doesn't go to plan, proving to yourself that, okay, it didn't go to plan and I was okay. I learned, I tried again, and I did better. That in itself acts as a proof point. And when we have these proof points, these evidence pieces, it builds what's called self-efficacy, which is the belief, yes, I can set a goal and I can achieve the goal.
Right.
So I want to wind back a little. In terms of my experience, I have a lot of self-doubt, especially around people. Okay. Especially around, do they like me? Am I coming across okay? I'm a natural people pleaser by nature.
Oh, me too, girl.
Woo! I think a lot of women resonate with this. And for me, it was how I was raised. My parents didn't know that this would become an ongoing challenge that I'd have. They did the best they could with what they knew. But I will never forget when I was about 3 years old, started when I was anywhere between 3 and 5, I used to do ballet. And every Friday night, we'd have a big Persian gathering at my parents' house because I'm Persian. We were in Australia. And after dinner, it was Shadé bayad bedarse, which is translated to Shadé has to dance for us.
Oh.
You know how you bring the kid out and you
just
dance?
Perform a little bit, yeah.
And it was great. It made them happy. I was happy doing it. And then it happened every single week. Now, we got to a point when I was a bit older and a bit more self-aware and perhaps not as interested as being the center of attention, but I didn't know how to say no. And so I would do it because it made everyone happy and I didn't know I had a choice. So I had internalized this belief that, okay, I make other people happy when I perform for them, even if I don't want to. And I've carried that through my entire life. So I'm currently now applying some of the principles in this to help me shake that attachment to validation, because I think being a people-oriented person is wonderful. Being agreeable, wanting people to collaborate and to agree and to make people happy. When your entire sense of self-worth hinges on that thing, and when if someone doesn't like you, so I've had situations recently, and Sheen, you've probably experienced this. We're quite visible online, right? Yeah. And naturally, there are going to be people who just don't resonate with you, your message, your voice, your eyebrows,
of
like
course.
something. I still find that difficult. That's great to know that it's still there. It's still a challenge. But I think what we've learned to do is go, okay, fine. I find it difficult. I'm just going to do something else. I'm going to positively distract myself. I'm going to take action anyhow. The longer you stay in that and you ruminate on it, that's when it changes your mood. That's when it changes how you feel. That's when it makes you start second guessing. So you kind of have to learn to just shake off these feelings and these thoughts. Because again, it's not necessarily the thought that matters. It's the, well, am I going to stay in that state and keep thinking about it and ruminating, or just move through it? And so that's what I believe both of us have been able to do really well. And I think anyone who has been able to succeed and is happy doing so is able to do that.
You know, I'm so glad you brought this up. This was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, is being online and being so visible. You do get a lot of hate. And it's so sad how you can get 900 positive comments and one negative comment, and you hold on to it. I remember it word for word, you know, even if you've only read it once, and you're like, oh, why did you not like me?
And you remember how it felt as well.
And it feels very personal.
Yeah.
That person doesn't know you. They probably don't even have a full name or a picture or anything, but you still attach so much importance to it. And that's why I wanted to ask you, like, do you think this comes from because whatever they're saying is a self-doubt that we have? Is that why it really triggers us? Before we get to the rest of the episode, I just wanted to let you know that we have opened Dubai's only co-working space and podcast studio under one roof. We have this set and this set for you to choose from and customize. You can work from here, or here, or here, or host your event here or here. Welcome to the Pen by Marina Pearl. You can book using the link in the description box below.
I would say there's two reasons. So one of the reasons is absolutely what you're touching on, the idea that something only hurts if it's a scar that you already have and they're poking at an existing wound. So here's an example I actually saw online. Sheen, if I said to you, your blue hair looks terrible. It looks absolutely terrible. Would you take that personally?
No, but like, my hair's not blue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you have or believe about yourself. So you're like, okay, great, bye. Whereas when we deeply believe, okay, so I'll be completely honest with everybody here. I have a credibility wound where I constantly feel like if someone tries to attack my credibility, that's when I feel it. And I feel this need to try and prove that, no, I deserve to be talking about this. I've just done the PhD, I have this, I have that. One of the reasons why I did a PhD was to try and fill that within me. And it doesn't help.
Yeah.
There are still people who are going to try and cut you down.
Of course.
And so, again, you just have to know what are your wounds. And firstly, how do you put yourself in situations where they're not going to be triggered? But when you're visible, you're kind of like, hey, trigger me. So how do you, even if that comes up, how do you acknowledge, okay, in the moment, I'm not going to internalize this. This is a result of that golf ball being deep in that water. How do I think of it more as the ping pong ball floating above? Okay, it's there. This person doesn't like me. It's not a reflection of my value or who I am. So there's definitely that piece. You only feel hurt by someone else if it's a deeply held belief you already have. The second piece is just how our brains are wired. So we have evolved as social creatures. We have survived in tribes, in communities for many, many, many years. And so the brain has evolved to highly value belonging and being approved of, and to see disapproval as a threat. Because if you are disapproved of in a tribe, you might experience rejection and be kicked out of the tribe, in which case your chances of survival are significantly less. So it's a survival advantage to be liked and part of the tribe. Our brains still operate a very similar way, to the point that studies have been done looking at how brains respond to social rejection, which is what happens when someone disapproves of you. It feels like you're being rejected.
Right.
The brain responds in the same way to social rejection as it does to physical pain. It activates the same parts of the brain, right? Now, we want to protect ourselves from physical pain because it hurts. In the same way, social rejection hurts. And so our brain is wired to protect us from that. So we magnify it. We try and seek the approval of other people. What we need to remind ourselves is, okay, the brain is doing what it's doing. I'm going to be okay if someone disagrees with me or doesn't like my idea or doesn't like my eyebrows. I had so many people comment on my eyebrows in my early days on TikTok.
God, I'm looking at your
Really, it gave me a complex about the eyebrows.
Oh, no.
So, again, it's just the world that we live in.
It is.
There's always going to be someone who doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And that's actually okay. I was speaking to a large audience and I said, you don't have to worry about being liked by everybody because you're not pizza. And then you know what someone said? They yelled out, I don't even like pizza. I was
Case
like,
in point.
Case in point. Thank you for saying that. Perfect example.
Case in point.
We're not pizza. That needs to be a tagline on a t-shirt.
That does need to be a tagline. But you're so right, because even for me, you were vulnerable. I'll share mine as well. My main thing that I get really triggered as a hate comment is, for example, someone said, imagine being her parents and educating her so much for her to now have, really boring and not very deep conversations online with influencers. And I was like, why did that trigger me? And I realized it's because for me, it was a big deal to leave all of that behind and do this, because you know how there's this negative connotation associated with being a content creator or an influencer. It almost feels like it's an easy life. It's a cop-out. You don't need any talent to do this. So I knew that that's what triggers me. And then now I just, you know what? I delete the comments because I will go back and read it again otherwise. Yes. So I just delete, or I don't read the comments. You know, after a few hours, once something goes viral, I'm sure you know, the more love you get, the more hate you get. So I'm like, that's it. I need to stop reading it. And somebody gave me great advice, which was the day the hate comments will stop bothering you is the day the good comments also stop making you feel good about yourself.
I love that.
Right.
I love that. There's so many things you just mentioned which are so valuable. You've taken an active stand around what you need to protect your energy.
Correct.
And isn't it beautiful that you have the power to just delete a comment? And otherwise we're obsessing over it and literally you can delete it.
Gone.
Yeah. And then it's out of your mind. Well done for doing that.
Thank you.
The second piece that you mentioned is this idea of, in fact, I completely forgot. What was the last thing you just shared?
If the good comments don't make you feel good.
So one of the things that we find is that when self-doubt is driven by a lack of self-acceptance, which is when we feel that we need the validation of others, we don't want to be excluded from the group, we fear failure, we're perfectionists, all of this. When we're experiencing that, it's largely because, again, we want to be part of this group. But what happens is because we don't have a strong sense of who we are, we don't accept who we are, so we allow the praise of others to make us feel amazing, and then we allow the disapproval of others to pull us down. There's this fantastic book I read called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it's based on Toltec wisdom. And one of the agreements within that is this idea of take nothing personally. And we've heard that, but what I loved about it is it's also don't take the positive feedback personally either. It shouldn't be something that allows you to feel good about yourself, because then what are you telling yourself? Well, I'm not really strong in who I am.
Right.
I'm going to let other people tell me how I should feel. And that's the wrong goal. So I love that you're thinking that way.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to approach this. But now that we've touched randomly, and obviously from the book, I know that you have the 4 pillars kind of like of self-doubt, right? I want you to elaborate on this, because my follow-up question on this is especially for overachieving and ambitious women. I want to know where do we excel in these 4, and where do we usually need help in building it up a bit?
Okay, well, why don't we use you as our example?
Please.
We're gonna determine what Sheen's doubt profile is, your archetype.
Let's go.
So I'm gonna just ask you a few questions. Actually, why don't I tell you what I think it is based on your journey, based on what you've shared with me. And as I do that, I'll explain for everyone listening and watching what these look like, so they can almost determine. In fact, we do have a complimentary quiz that we've got on the website, so maybe we can put it in the show notes.
I'll put the link,
And it's just 12 questions, but it helps you determine where you're strong, where you're weak. Okay, so the very first pillar that drives how we see ourselves, like these scars that we have. Now, just to preface it for everyone, we want all of these attributes to be strong within us. That allows us to have the degree of strength in who we are, so that self-doubt bounces off us. You know, we might have the thought, it's still there, but we don't internalize it. So that's the key. So the very first one is what we call self-acceptance, which reflects a very low self-esteem or mid-conditional self-esteem. So that looks like outsourcing your worth, needing the validation of other people. It looks like proving that you deserve to be where you are, attaching your sense of identity to your performance. It looks like feeling guilty when you stop working because you feel like you are your work. It also looks like, this is a very interesting one, some people fear success because of the visibility it will bring, and they don't feel like they'll be able to maintain that. And so they shrink. It's called the shrinking syndrome. They shrink when something great is about to happen.
Oh, wow.
They sabotage themselves. They step back. They say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not ready. A lot of people do this. I'm not ready. I'll know when I'm ready. And they're waiting forever. So this is acceptance. Now, from what you've shared with me, it seems like acceptance is probably, I wouldn't say it's super low, because what happens is when any of these are really, really low, it prevents people from action. They become paralyzed.
Right.
I would say yours is conditional. Meaning, if you're around people who believe in you and you're getting positive feedback and everyone's happy, you feel great.
Oh, 100%.
Right? However, when you're around people who disagree, are pointing out flaws, are sharing these horrible things online, and you're around people that don't necessarily believe in you, that's when you start doubting yourself. Conditional self-acceptance.
100%.
So that's our first pillar.
And I would say my work is still very attached to my worth. 100%.
Yes.
Yes.
Very common in women.
Yes.
So that's our first pillar. The second pillar, so that one's essentially around this sense of worthiness, feeling like you're enough as you are. Okay, first. Second pillar relates to whether you believe you can actually do what you want to do. So this relates to self-efficacy, and the trainable part of that is what we call agency. If you were to set a goal, do you believe that you will find a way to make that goal happen? Yes.
I do.
So we find a lot of women are extremely high, or not extremely high, but in a healthy state of agency. Now, question for you. Have you ever felt undeserving of your success? Or that other people believe you to be smarter or more capable than you are?
I don't think so.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, that on that front, because I'll tell you, it wasn't always like this. Especially when I got into Oxford the first time, I thought, oh my God, was this an admission mistake? But then after that, I started, again, as you said, right? Once you get action, that kind of like gives you proof, because I'm very data driven in my life. Then once I started getting proof, I'll give you an example, right? 1 Billion Summit, I was on the main stage, and this is the biggest stage I've ever been on. In the past, every time I would go on stage, the top of my ears start to heat up, right? And that's me getting my little anxiety about people will be looking at me. What side are they seeing? Are they going to think I'm smart or not? But this time, I was waiting to go on stage, and I was like, wow, my ears are not heating up. I was like, why is it not heating up? This is the biggest stage I've ever been on. I was like, oh,
why are they not working?
Do you know where we're going? And then I realized it's because I've done it so many times now. I know I can do this. I know I got this, and I think that's been built over the years for me.
Brilliant. So I'm very happy that the ears didn't go off.
No, they didn't.
And congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
huge. And again, it's this idea of, well, I've done it enough times that I have trust that I'll be fine.
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, a lot of women who do struggle with agency, they might have achieved amazing things, but they feel undeserving of it. They feel like they are that fraud, that someone's going to find out they don't deserve to be there. And what that looks like is trying to overcompensate, taking on more work, staying later, doing more than anyone else. And then they just end up burning themselves out.
Right.
We also see here, if someone struggles with agency, there's a lot of comparison to other people and feeling like you are falling behind, feeling like everyone else is ahead of you, feeling like everyone else is better than you at what they do. This is really common on social media.
I was about to say.
Because we don't usually get inspired by people who are at our level or below.
No.
We follow people who are ahead and we want to be like them. But when you struggle with agency, you're no longer inspired. You're intimidated. You feel inferior. You feel like you'll never get there. And then you also discount just how much you've actually achieved.
Yes.
There was this study done with Olympic gold and silver and bronze medalists. So individual competition, swimming, etc. Let me ask you this question. Let's say that you've been spending the last 4 years waking up at 4 a.m. every morning, intense training. You finally make it to the Olympics, the finals. It's the match or the race of your life. You get to the end of the race. You look up to the board and you discover you've placed second. How happy do you think you'd be?
I don't think I'll be happy.
What about if you placed third?
Oh, I would be very sad if I was third.
So this is what we'd intuitively think.
Yeah.
What's happened, though, when they've done these studies, they did one in 1995 and they replicated it in 2021. They found that silver medalists are not happy.
Because they were almost there.
Almost there. If only I had done this, I could have done. Bronze medalists are super happy. Happier, more satisfied. Do you know why?
They almost didn't make it.
I almost missed out.
Oh my God.
And entirely depending on whether they're comparing up on what they missed out on or comparing down on what they could have been, it entirely shapes how happy and satisfied they are. And so when we're comparing, we're only ever comparing ourselves to people ahead of us. And if we look up and think, I could never do that, or I wish I this or that, it makes us feel less satisfied with where we are. Whereas I'm not saying you should never do that. It's really important to have these role models or people that you aspire to be like. But when that comparison eats away at your sense of achievement or accomplishment or capacity, it's really damaging. So I always encourage people, acknowledge where you are and how far you've grown. And then instead of comparison, look at how far ahead they are, I could never do that, shifts to what we call emulation. Look at how far ahead they are, how do I be more like that? How do I apply what they've applied? How do I learn from their journey? And it shifts you from this state of feeling like you're not good enough into, well, if they did it, I can do it too. How do I make that happen? So that's a little tip for anyone who struggles with agency.
That's really good. You know, I'll tell you a little personal story. You met Juliet earlier.
Yes.
So when we were doing our end of year review, I was like, I'm so gutted because I wanted Instagram to hit 1 million by the end of the year and we're at 850.
Close.
We were
close,
so
though.
close. And then she was like, we started the year at 100. And I was like,
You started the year, you went from 100 to 850 in a year?
Yeah. And I was like, I forgot about that.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So again, because we don't appreciate the journey because we're comparing upwards, we keep thinking, oh, but that's where I needed to be. But we don't appreciate the journey of where we've come. So 100% I'm with you on that.
And you know what would have happened? You would have probably reached 1 mil and gone, oh, I wish it was 1.5. When I was growing initially on Instagram, I said to my husband, when I hit 100,000, let's go out for dinner. Let's go celebrate. And then 100 got close and I said, no, let's make it 200. And then 200, let's make it half.
We push the bar
every time. And that's why a lot of people are telling themselves, I will be happy when I make the promotion, when I get that job, when I buy that house. And then they get there and they might feel elated for like a little while.
Yeah.
And then they just think, okay, well, what's next? Two things are happening here. One, it's because they get there and they realize this is not exactly what I thought it would feel like. Why do I still not feel like I'm enough? And then the second thing is they also then start comparing themselves against the next layer. Okay, well, I got that, but they've got that. Oh, then I need that. And then they're constantly chasing this feeling of enough. But you cannot chase that feeling. It's something you have to acknowledge here and now. So that's a very interesting space. And congratulations, that's huge. I have a friend who he hit the New York Times bestseller list. And I congratulated him. He was number 2 on that list.
Incredible.
And he said, yeah, but I could have been number 1. So it happens at every single level.
Every level. But see, what advice do you have here for people? You mentioned that we need to have that feeling of enoughness here. What are some of the tools that you think is useful here?
So the very first one is acknowledging that you have to become aware of your thoughts. You have to become aware of your thoughts because otherwise they are the golf ball in the water. You internalize them. You think that that's who you are. So the very first step is when you're hearing these thoughts, they will say things like, I am not enough. I am a failure. I will never. Anything that comes after the word I am, we internalize as identity and we view it as being fixed. Same thing applies with emotions. I am anxious. We're telling ourselves, well, I am an emotion, which is fundamentally incorrect. So what you want to get better at doing is what's called cognitive diffusion from the literature. And essentially you create a gap between you and the thought. So you'd say, I am noticing a thought that I am a failure. I am noticing that there's something telling me I'm not enough. This is how you slowly take the golf ball out, right, of the water. So that's your first step. When it comes to emotions as well, you can do this too. Instead of I am stressed, I am frustrated, I am anxious, you'd say, I'm noticing that I'm feeling anxiety. I am holding on to a lot of frustration right now. You remind yourself this is not permanent, it's temporary, it will change. So that's our first step. The next step, I mean, there's so many things that we could do, but we need to be taking actions because remember, the thought is only the problem. The belief is only a problem if you allow it to change how you feel and what you do.
Right.
So how do we sever the connection between the thought and the action so that we can take the actions, which then gives us the proof points, like you were saying on the stage, gives you the proof points that, hey, I can do this. I deserve to be here. So that's the key. One of them is going to be, instead of immediately saying yes to other people, people who struggle with enoughness feel like they need validation, and so they will default to saying yes before they even know what they're saying yes to. And then they often end up overburdened, overcommitted, and doing things that really deep down they don't want to do. Like me at the age of 8, not wanting to dance, but saying, of course I'll do it. Delay. We touched on this earlier. This idea of intentional delay. We know from studies that if you just take a split second pause, you make far better decisions when you're under pressure. So what does this look like? Let's say, Sheen, you ask me if I can work late tonight. Instead of course, and then thinking, oh my gosh, no, I can't, and then not being able to go back and rectify that. You say, thank you for thinking of me. Let me check with my schedule and I'll get back to you.
Right.
Let me check with my husband and I'll let you know. Let me have a look at my workload and see if we can make it work. I'll get back to you by the end of the hour.
Right.
Or get back to you by tonight or by the end of the weekend. So 2 things. You create the delay, give yourself time, and then allow yourself to think, do I really want to do this? And then tell them when you will get back to them and then get back to them. Super easy. And then if you need to decline, thanks again for thinking of me. I've checked. It's not going to work with my schedule, but do you want me to put you in touch with someone else?
Right.
Or can we look at doing this next week? If we can get better at saying no and recognizing that we need to honor what we need to do, you might have some people that don't like it because we set an expectation of how we're going to be treated based on how we let people treat us. And if you've been always saying yes, so this often happens to women. We say yes to everything at work.
Yep.
And then it becomes the competency curse. We're good at what we do. We keep saying yes. So who do they keep coming back to? Us. And then the moment we finally go, okay, no, I'm asserting a boundary here, or I'm finally saying, no, this is not what I'm going to keep saying yes to, suddenly that person's really unhappy with us.
You're difficult now.
Exactly. And so it's challenging, but the more we do it with small things, the better and easier it becomes. And then everything will feel better. So that's how we start acknowledging that, okay, for me to accept who I am, I need to honor what I need. And sometimes that means saying no. Something that's really helpful here is having a deeper yes. We don't like to say no, okay? Because we're focused on, I'm saying no to this person.
Right.
And that feels quite negative. So how can we think about saying yes to something deeper? So yes, we might be saying no to that person or declining that thing, but that's because we're saying yes to honoring who we are. We're saying yes to honoring dinner time with the kids. Or saying yes to honoring rest time, which I need so I can be my best tomorrow. When in your mind you have that, so you're not just saying no, you're saying yes to something deeper, it helps you create that balance. So you don't just feel like you're that difficult, selfish person.
Right.
No, I'm honoring something deeper. Now, one other thing that's really helpful here is, so every time I come to post something on social media, I feel cringy. I question, are people going to like this? Is it going to resonate? All the common things that usually hold people back and probably would have if it were 10 years ago for me. But instead, I actively say to myself, care less. Care less, Shadé. Just care less. And I go ahead and I post it. And so the idea is I'm reminding myself in that moment, I'm going to care less about what people think and what kind of engagement I have. I'm just going to care less. And so I shared with my husband that this is really working for me, this idea of care less. He said, that's great, but you're missing half of it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, what are you caring more about?
Ooh.
And I loved it because I thought, yes, let's flip it into something positive and affirming. So sometimes I will literally write down, care less about other people's expectations, their opinions, what they think, what they say, care more about being of value, being of service, living with integrity, contributing. And it reminds you in that moment that if you let the care less list take over, you're then not able to do all the other things that you wish to do and to have that impact and have that contribution. So that's really effective. And again, what that does is gives you the ability to have those little proof points, which not only helps build up the evidence that, hey, I am the kind of person who's able to do this, but it also, we know that when you're taking action on a small goal, that is part of a bigger goal, you get this beautiful shot of dopamine.
Yes.
Because dopamine is released in anticipation of something that we want. And as we get these little shots of dopamine, we suddenly feel really good. We suddenly feel more motivated. We suddenly create momentum. I'm going to pause on the 4
Yeah,
things. There's something I want to share, which I think is so important because there's a big misunderstanding that exists. We're going to bust that right now.
Go for it.
I'm going to ask you this. What is the opposite of self-doubt? Without thinking about it too much.
Self-trust.
Okay, I love it. You've obviously been primed. So when we ask this question on stages with the leaders and teams that we're working with these Fortune 100 companies, 95%, 90 to 95% will say confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence. And I'll admit, before I did the research, I thought exactly the same thing. So many people are waiting to feel confident before they take action because they genuinely believe that confidence is the state that they need to reach to combat the self-doubt. But that is why they're perpetually waiting. They're waiting to feel ready. They're waiting until that feeling arrives, and it doesn't arrive. And it's because when we interrogate what confidence is to people, it's associated with this feeling of certainty. And certainty doesn't come before you've done something. It actually comes after you've done it. You have to do the thing, see yourself doing the thing, which boosts that idea of self-efficacy, this belief that I can do the thing, which also allows you to build a degree of skill and competence, which then boosts your confidence. That's when that feeling of certainty arrives. So then if confidence comes after we do the thing, what comes first?
Yeah.
Self-trust. And the beautiful thing about self-trust is you do not have to feel confident. You just have to trust yourself more. Trust that you are worthy, trust that you will figure it out, trust that you have some degree of power, and trust that you'll be able to handle the emotions that come with it. And so we've so far looked at the first two pillars of self-trust, acceptance. We've identified yours is like kind of conditional.
Yeah.
And then agency, you don't have an issue with agency. You've developed it. And that's the beautiful thing. These things are trainable within us. But many women, they have kind of conditional agency as well. Now, let's move to the third, which is...
Before you move, I have questions.
Let's do it.
No, I love what you touched about on the second pillar. But one thing I want to ask you, as recovering people pleasers, right? Especially when you are... in the workplace, when you have your own business, we are entrepreneurs, right? You have your own team, you work with a lot of people, and even in the public eye with people. How do you, sometimes you have to put your foot down, sometimes you have to give constructive feedback, sometimes you have to fire people. And a lot of that I know women struggle with because now this person cannot like you after you fired somebody, and then it becomes difficult even giving feedback. But then how do you, as you mentioned, how do you cut that bond in between how you're feeling and what you need to do? How do you stop that emotion from impacting your decision as an entrepreneur? Hey dreamers, quick pause from the convo. If you are wondering what the Dreamers Digest is, it's my exclusive online community where I share behind the scenes goodies, lessons from building this podcast, and all the juicy stuff that never makes it to the final cut. If you're not in it yet, check the link in the show notes and come join us. It's 100% free. Also, shocking fact, 89% of you watching this on YouTube right now are not even subscribed. Wild, right? So if that's you, go ahead and hit that button. It would mean the world to me. And now, super exciting news. We launched the Podcast Academy. This is where I've poured everything I've learned from taking this show to 150 million views and turning it into a real business. It's 10 powerful modules packed with tools to help you launch, grow, and actually monetize your podcast. You'll even get the chance to submit your episode for personal feedback from me and my team. If you've been thinking about starting a show or scaling the one you already have, this is your sign. Click the link in the description box below to learn more. Now, back to the episode.
So with this feeling of wanting people to like us at work, it can completely derail what we need to do. And a lot of women, as you said, very much struggle with the people elements because they feel like if they're too soft, then they get taken advantage of.
Right.
And if they're too harsh, then everyone hates them and calls them bossy. And again, we have this giant double standard.
Yeah.
We could go into all that research, but we're not. What's really helpful to remind yourself is that I am here to be effective. If you're an employee, I'm here to be effective. I'm here to do my job. And sometimes that involves doing things that are uncomfortable.
Right.
What I like to say, though, is if you're a good human, you shouldn't enjoy these things. You shouldn't enjoy firing people and giving people negative feedback. Of course not, because you genuinely care about other people. So then there are things that we can do that are going to help us deliver what we need to deliver in terms of the feedback or the firing in a way that is more people-oriented, like human first. So when it comes to feedback, the fact of the matter is there's two elements. One of them, people don't like receiving feedback because we fundamentally don't like to be told what to do because we want to feel like we're in control of things. And it can undermine our self-efficacy when someone tells us what to do. That's the first step. The second one is feedback has a very negative connotation.
Of course.
I mean, if I said to you, Sheen, can I give you some feedback?
I'll start sweating.
Yes, and they're like, up here, right? The ear would start tingling and going red again. We fundamentally don't like it because there's a very negative space. It's like, here's what's wrong and here's how you need to fix it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel great, especially because we internalize it, which reflects conditional self-acceptance. So what we want to do is acknowledge, okay, when it comes to human behavior, how do we get people to change their behavior and actually want to? Well, we start by building up their self-efficacy. What does that look like? I'm going to tell you what's working really well. I'm going to tell you what you're doing well. So you can start that conversation feeling like, oh, she's on my side. She wants to see me succeed. You feel good about yourself. And then instead of saying, here's what's wrong, here's how you fix it, you say, here is what's working well, and here's what would make you even better. Here's how you'd be even more effective. Here's how you'd have even more of an impact. So I'm still addressing the behavior or the performance issue, but I'm actually phrasing it as, hey, I want to see you succeed. And this is how you get there. And it fundamentally changes the way that you approach this conversation. It fundamentally changes the way you feel in this conversation and changes the way that they then respond to you.
Of course.
And take it and how receptive they are.
Yeah. The choice of language makes a huge difference in whatever aspect you're having, right? Choice of language. And I told you this earlier, you're so good with your choice of words as well whenever we're having conversation. But you know, one thing, one advice I got was to do the compliment sandwich. Right? Start with a good thing, then you give the feedback, then you end with another good thing of again saying, you know, we value what you're doing here and I think you will be great. Okay, thank you. That was that question. We can go back to the third.
Well, I just want to touch on language.
Please.
Because it's so powerful.
Please.
The language that you use can change not only how relationships are, but also the language you use to yourself.
Of course.
In fact, let me pause on this because it comes up in the third attribute.
Okay, we'll do that.
So we've got the first two.
Yes.
The third one is what we see extremely high in many women, especially in high-performing women, high-potential women. We call it autonomy, and it reflects what's called a locus of control. So locus of control, locus comes from the word, or the Latin word loci, which refers to location. And so it's where do you place control in your life? Like the location of control. Is it outside of you? As in my life is controlled by other people, my family, the market, my boss, things that I have no control over? Or do you feel like you have a degree of control over your choices and that they will have some kind of an outcome? Not that you can control everything, because we know that's not possible, but do you feel personally powerful? And we find a lot of women are very good at this. They focus on what they can control. They don't complain. They don't blame other people. They're not resentful. And that's why they've been able to achieve a degree of success in their lives. Would you resonate with that?
I think I would. But again, I think it varies for me. And I don't know if it's even, this just came up, but even with our cycles, right? I feel like at different hormonal periods of my life, I will react very differently to different things. I might feel like, you know what, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I don't care what other people think. And then other days I'm like, oh my God, everyone thinks I'm silly. You know, so it really varies for me.
And I'm glad you raised that because that's something I actually don't share ever. I'm not an expert in that space, but I know personally that I will have an existential crisis every single month.
Me too.
And I'm in bed thinking, what am I doing with my life? I have chosen the wrong career. I don't have any energy to do any of this and I'm in bed crying.
Where are we going?
Yeah, and my husband will come and be like, you're due. Check your cycle. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I will literally check. I'm like, how does he know every single month? How do I not know after being through this for decades?
We've been doing it for years. Every time I get my period, I was like, oh.
It was that.
It makes sense. Life is okay.
Life is fine. Everything is easier. And so it is more complicated and challenging for women because we have these other factors that are influencing how much we accept ourselves.
Right.
And what we're focusing on. So one of the best things I can encourage women to do is actually track their cycle.
Yep.
And then also plan around it. I know that in the couple of days before, I am not in a state to be doing podcasts, the other thing is also like physically. There are certain times of the month where I'm like, I'm not going on a podcast then because I'm going to have a bloated face and pimple. Right? So if you can, try and manage your time and life around
Even
it.
your productivity varies,
Completely,
right? Yeah.
Completely. So if you can get better at tracking, you're going to be able to then predict better and then plan better. It's not always the case. You don't always have that luxury. But if you can try, again, it's just taking about a little bit of control. So I'm glad that you raised it. Important that we acknowledge it.
Great.
But it seems to me that you are you have a high degree of autonomy. You focus on what you can control.
I do.
If things don't work well, if someone doesn't like you, if something is a failure, you just move as quickly as you can to, well, what can I do? And that has been one of the secrets to your success. I mean, there's many, but that is something that is a huge strength. Now, what we find with some women who are conditional or low on this, they complain a lot. And this is not only at work, but we see this happening at work, and your workplace can drag this down. If you're in a position, and it could be your business too, but let's look at workplaces. If you're in a position, in a culture, in a team where people don't feel like they have a voice, decisions are made for them, they have a micromanaging boss, you don't feel like you have a degree of autonomy.
Right.
And so what do? You complain about it because it makes you feel like you can control something, which is me complaining and connecting with other people through that complaining. And it can become very toxic very quickly. The other thing that we see women tend to do is we connect with others, unfortunately, through complaining.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, what my husband did last night, you would never guess. And then someone else jumps in, you think that is bad?
Let me tell you.
And it's, it's not the healthiest way to be connecting because it's also undermining your autonomy. The reason why complaining undermines autonomy, when we complain, we are activating the same parts of our brain that were active when the first instance happened. Right? So let's say your partner, your loved one, your husband does something, says something, and you have a very strong reaction. And then you go and complain about it. You are reliving that experience in vivid detail. You feel it again. And then it makes that memory even deeper etched into your brain so that when it pops up, you again embody the whole thing. Not only that, whatever we tend to experience often, whether it's a thought, whether it's a belief, whether it's a complaint, it then shapes what we notice more of. So if you're constantly complaining about everything that's wrong in your relationship, you are going to notice more things that are wrong in your relationship. If you're constantly complaining about everything wrong at work, you will notice all the things that are wrong at work.
Right. Your lenses have
completely
changed. Yeah.
And that's the power of attention. Attention is a superpower. So, and again, this is not just limited to women, but this is something anecdotally I have noticed in our clients, in my friends. Just things that happen. So we need to just be fully aware of what's going on because we can enter victim state very quickly. And a lot of people stay in relationships longer than they need to because they feel like they can't do anything about it because they keep reliving it through complaining and then feeling powerless. A lot of people stay in workplaces way longer than they should. They're mistreated. They're treated poorly. It's toxic, but they don't feel like they have power. So again, it's like shift your attention. One of the greatest reframes here, because when we're in that negative state, the I'm powerless state, what we see is greater activation in the threat detection centers in the brain. So we're constantly paying attention to everything wrong, all the threats, and then magnifying them. When you consciously take control of your attention and your thoughts, simply that idea of conscious control re-engages the prefrontal regions, which allows us to feel a little bit calmer, more rational. Because when we talk about activation in the brain, largely how it's tracked is where's the blood flow going? So when you've got activation in your emotion centers, the blood's flowing there, which means less blood in the prefrontal regions. You want to bring the blood back, consciously take control of your thoughts. So instead of why me? Why does this keep happening to me? Why are my relationships always bad? Why am I always mistreated at work? This is victim,
of course,
self-talk. Instantly shift to what now? What now? So what that does is acknowledge, okay, well, this is the situation. I cannot change what these people are doing. But what action am I going to take? Which requires you to focus on what you can control. And there's two things to do here. So that shifting is very important. But then you move into what I call the could do and the will do list. You write down everything you could do. Now, when we're in this state, this is quite difficult because there's one word that creeps into our mind and it's should. Well, I should be doing that and I should have done this and I should have raised it a month ago and I should have. We get stuck in shoulds. But shoulds activate what's called reactance within us. We don't like being told what we should do, whether it's by other people. And we don't like it when we tell ourselves what we should do. And we have this resistance in us. We become like 2-year-olds. No, right?
Yeah, it's very negative.
Very negative. So instead of should, what studies have found, because the word should can cut off divergent thinking, prevents your ability to think of solutions. And studies have been done in groups. So at work or when you're trying to collaborate, the word should cuts off solution finding.
Wow.
So instead, what these studies have found is shift to could. Just that simple, is it 2 letters different? Yes, just changing the S and the H into a C opens up divergent thinking. You're able to think of more solutions, more options. And when you suddenly think, okay, well, I could do this and I guess I could do that and I could do this and I could do this and I could do this, you feel much more personally powerful. But then the next step is, okay, what will you do? What are 3 things from that list that you will take action on? The smaller, the better. You want to make it impossible not to fail.
Right.
And impossible not to do, because it's so easy. You get the proof points, you build the self-efficacy, you feel more personally powerful, creates a cycle. So this is our third pillar, autonomy.
Right.
Should we move to the fourth?
Yeah, again, this was the power of language, by the way.
Power of language.
Love it. Yeah.
I think language is... So I saw this quote many, many years ago. It said, words create worlds. Words create worlds. And it's so relevant on so many levels in our relationships and internally in our internal world. Power of relationships. Okay, so now we go to the fourth.
Let's go.
So we know that you're high on autonomy.
Okay.
Oh, let me just share. Something that happens when people are really high on autonomy, though, is it becomes excessive and turns into a liability. What do I mean by that? They're so high on focusing on what they can control that they start to take responsibility for things that are actually not their responsibility to take. So it could have been something completely out of their hands, but they personalize and they attack themselves. They should have known better. And this is where we see, again, people who are really high on this sometimes become self-critical because they're taking ownership for things that really they had no idea were going to happen.
Right.
So that's just something to be aware of.
Okay.
All of these have like a shadow side, a dark side when they're too high. The fourth one entirely comes down to your emotional experience at any point of time. So Sheen, let me ask you this. Let's take you back to when you used to get this red on your ear.
Yeah.
This like anxiety-induced physiological reaction. Just very quickly, what are a few things you were feeling in your body?
Is in physical feelings, yeah. Definitely temperature in my ears, that would tingle. And my throat would a little bit tighten. And I get parched. That's what I would feel.
Heart rate increase?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, all the usuals.
Of course.
Now, in that moment, you obviously would have had thoughts that would reinforce how you're feeling. Oh my gosh, anxiety, right? If we were just to pause and strip away every single emotion and physiological experience you had, now you're just left with you and some thoughts.
Yeah.
Is it suddenly much easier to process those thoughts and to rationally work through them because you don't have any feeling in response to them? Completely. So this is the power of emotional regulation. As soon as we can regulate our emotions, everything in life becomes easier.
I'm sure.
Everything. And so this is the fourth pillar of self-trust. It's trusting that you can handle the emotions that come with something, but also trusting that no matter what emotion you feel, you don't have to become it. You don't have to internalize it. It doesn't have to define your experience. And so we find a lot of the time, if you struggle with any of the other attributes, so in your case, like the conditional acceptance, conditional agency, it's driven by an emotion.
Of course.
All you have to do is think about how it feels when someone doesn't like you or gives you negative feedback. It has a very strong emotional profile.
Yeah.
So if we can get better at managing the emotion, we get better at managing the thought, which allows us to rewrite the belief. So really simply, a couple of basics for getting better at emotional regulation.
Tell me.
The first one is, we've all heard the power of expansive body postures, right?
Yes.
I'm going to unpack this a little bit because there's recent research that doesn't flip it on its head, but it gives us more of an insight into what's really happening.
Okay.
We know that there is a connection between brain and body. Thoughts reinforce how we feel reinforces what's going on in our head and our minds, and also our body will reflect how we feel, and then how we feel reflects what's going on, right? So when you're anxious, when you're nervous, when you're insecure, what happens to your body?
You really become rigid, isn't it?
Rigid, we slouch,
Yes.
we take up less space because the body's identified, or rather the brain has identified a threat.
Yes.
And we're trying to protect ourselves from the threat. So we withdraw physically.
Yes.
What that does then is reinforce to the brain, yep, there is a threat. Okay, withdraw more. And it just reinforces these negative thoughts.
Right.
So there's something called the opposite action strategy. It is so stupidly simple. When your body is telling you to withdraw, but there is no physical threat, do the opposite of what your body's telling you to do. Do the opposite. If you notice yourself slouching, instantly sit upright. Lift your neck a little bit more. Take in a deep breath. It's so simple, but it's this idea of behavioral activation. We're activating the parts of our body that reinforces to our brain, no, I'm safe.
I'm good.
I'm okay. And that can help you in the moment. Now, coming back to this idea of expansive posture, what's fascinated me is, what is it about our posture that is sending that feedback loop back to the brain? And studies have been done to determine what's called the mediator between these things, right? So it's like posture and then feeling and mood. What is happening in between? And that's called a mediator. And they found there's one thing in particular, And it's entirely, actually, let me get everyone and Sheen to do an exercise. I'd like you to just tilt your head down. Tilt your head down.
Fully.
And then come back to regular, neutral. Okay, one more time, tilt down. Now, when you're tilting down, can you feel the back of your neck strain? Okay, now tilt up again. That's called neck flexion, what's happening with our neck. And what these studies have found is that the distance between your chin and your chest is the determining factor for how you feel. The distance between your chin and your neck, because you can't really slouch and keep your neck up, right?
No. It goes down.
It goes down just automatically.
Yeah.
So this idea of neck flexion, which is what's happening at the back of your neck, which is determined by the distance between chin and chest, determines how you feel. So when you're in a state, you're about to go on stage, you're about to have a conversation with someone at the restaurant, whatever it is, you just don't even worry about open posture. Literally, it's just
this.
Chin to chest. How do I just elongate chin to chest?
Oh, wow.
Fascinating.
That's so easy as well.
It's so easy because I actually find sometimes sitting really upright like hurts. I get aches in my back, but this is much better. And when you do that, everything relaxes.
Your shoulders drop. So it's
exactly.
really nice. Yeah.
Super simple. So that is something to bear in mind. The other thing is, if we had a pen, I would demonstrate. I remember in my first year of psychology, we learned about the facial feedback loop, where it's like, okay, we've just talked about the physiological feedback loop between body and brain, but there's also a loop between our face and how we feel and what's going on. If you were to grab a pen, I'm going to use my finger to demonstrate, and place it between your teeth like this.
Yeah.
And keep it there for 30 seconds. You would start to feel a little happier, a little more at ease, a little calmer. Do you know why? What am I doing with my face?
This is opening. Your jaws are unclenching. And
what else?
This is going up into a smile almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually, I mean, that's like a crazy face. But we're contracting certain muscles that we contract when we smile, and also relaxing other muscles that are relaxed when we smile. And you can almost convince your brain that you're happy. Just by what your face is doing. Because what usually happens when you're stressed, when you're frustrated, everything tenses.
Yeah.
Everything tenses. Yeah. I sometimes have to remind myself to like, relax.
Me too.
Okay. Super interestingly with Botox, they found that people who experience Botox often don't experience as negative moods because their face is not reinforcing how they feel.
Oh my God.
So when they've done these experimental studies, they found that if you're not able to move your face, you don't feel as stressed or as frustrated or as angry, which is remarkable. Not that I'm encouraging everyone to go get Botox. There's beauty in the natural, but hey, you do you, like whatever makes you happy. But what it's reinforcing is the power of what's going on here. And so even if we just start there, okay, face and body. How do I prime my face and body to be in the state that I want it to be in, to then feel what I want to feel as a result? So that's our first thing.
Wow.
And then the second one is, we touched on this earlier, this idea of separating from our emotions. Instead of I am anxious, I'm noticing anxiety. Instead of, okay, so there's another area in this space when it comes to emotions, and it's recognizing that your emotion has a function. We've evolved for our emotions to be messengers.
Right.
They're like little pings on our phone, like notification pings, right? So we can pay attention to what the pings are. We don't have to listen to every single one of them. But if you have a recurrent emotion, like before what's a situation that people might find themselves in often that gives them a lot of anxiety or self-doubt?
Let's say presentation.
Presentation. So every time you're giving a presentation, this was me. I used to get so anxious before speaking in my team meetings with my colleagues and friends. I would get so anxious that the moment I thought of something to say, my entire body would like sabotage me. My throat would close, my heart rate would, I'd go red. I hadn't even said anything. And then I'd lose the opportunity and I wouldn't say it. And I would have just gone through this emotional roller coaster and just stayed quiet the whole meeting. No one would have known. So when that was happening, what would have been great is if I had, not in the moment, but prior to it, asked myself, what is this emotion telling me? Okay, well, I'm feeling extremely anxious before speaking. Well, why? Okay, because I want to share something that's of value. Well, why? Because I want people to view me as credible. Well, why? Because deep down, I don't believe that I'm credible. There's always an underlying reason for the emotion, which will come down to one of these 4 pillars of self-trust. Deep down, I didn't accept who I was. And there's a reason for that. I studied law. I worked in the legal industry for 4 years. Never felt like I belonged. Felt like I was faking my way through. Moved into banking and finance. Why? I just needed something other than the law. Again, felt like I was faking my way through. And so because I didn't accept who I was and my value, it was showing up. through all these emotions, which was then preventing me from being of value because I'd sit silent in meetings.
Yeah.
So asking yourself those questions and determining. So for me, my best course of action, in addition to like controlling my body and my breath and all the things we know, was actually to address my lack of acceptance.
Right.
And finding ways to remind myself, even agency. So I didn't really believe I had the skills to be there because my background was psychology and law. And suddenly I'm in a bank. I don't know what a margin is. I don't know what net interest whatever is. And so what would have been helpful is to actually go through a process. In fact, I'll share it with everyone now. If you ever feel like you don't belong, you're questioning your skills and it's fueled by the emotion. For me, if I look at that agency pillar, one of the best things I could have done was, okay, I'm going to divide my piece of paper into three columns. On the left, I'm going to write down every quality I have developed. Not skills, because I knew I lacked. There were some skills I genuinely lacked.
Yeah.
Like financial modeling.
Sure.
That came much later. But what are all the skills? I call them essence qualities, the transferable human skills that I've developed throughout the entire course of my life. Write them all down on the left. Curiosity, growth mindset, ability to see through ambiguity. I wrote them all down. In the middle, what are all the things I don't believe I can do right now? Well, financial modeling is one of them. And then I had a whole bunch of other things in there. On the right-hand side is where you then marry them up. So for example, I don't know how to do financial modeling because I've never learned. So what I will do when I wrote this in the right side, or rather I did it much later, I did it probably in the last 3 years in banking, I finally addressed this lack of agency. You write down, okay, don't know how to do financial modeling. Well, I need to learn, and I'm going to bring my growth mindset, my curiosity, my ability to ask questions to that. And suddenly I felt a lot more powerful. Next one, I don't actually understand a lot of the terminology that's being used in these meetings, and I don't want to ask what this acronym means because I don't want people to think that I'm stupid and I don't belong. Okay, well, I'm going to bring my passion for asking questions and learning new things. I'm going to bring that and ask in the next meeting. So you marry up what you know you already have to what you're currently doing. And it's because the brain is wired like the YouTube algorithm. Not that anyone knows how the YouTube algorithm works. I think even people at YouTube probably don't know how it works. But if you see something, you're scrolling on your phone and you see something and it captures your attention, it triggers to that algorithm, show more of this.
Correct.
And then you're going to see more of it whether you want to or not. And then if you're attracted to those things and you keep watching them, you just get more and more. But if you go, no, actually, I don't want that, and you keep swiping, eventually it will learn, okay, well, we're not getting the desired impact. Let's stop serving up this content. Our brains work the same way. So if you're constantly focusing on what you don't know how to do, you will notice more of what you don't know how to do. Like we've covered this so many times through our conversation. But if you can remind yourself, well, I have all these existing qualities and strengths and attributes that I can apply even when I'm doing something new. So here's an example. It comes from the world. Let me share two little stories. One of them is legendary graphic designer Paula Scher.
Okay.
So this is back when Citibank was merging with Travelers Insurance to create Sheen Group.
Right.
So this is in, I think it was 1998.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yes, a very long time ago. And they needed a logo. So they hired Paula Scher, who was top of what she did. Like she was phenomenal, incredible at graphic design. They hired her to work on the logo. So she's sitting in this meeting and everyone is talking about what they have in mind for the logo. She grabs a napkin and she starts scribbling on the napkin. Then she slides it across the table and she goes, here's your logo. Now the room was stunned. They're like, how is it possible that you've just designed a logo in a matter of seconds? And she calmly responded, I did it in a second and 34 years. I designed this in a couple of seconds, but it's with every experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
She understood her worth. She understood that time does not necessarily have to, so we live in a world where we think that time equals value.
Yes.
I must put in X amount of hours in order to charge this much.
For it to be worth it.
Or for it to be worth. When actually, no, because the better you get at anything, the less time it takes you.
Of course.
It's not that it's value, it should be valued less. In fact, it should be valued more because you've honed the expertise. And yet so often, again, we focus on what we don't know or that we need to be working really hard to prove that this thing is of value. We undersell ourselves or undercut ourselves. So that's Paula's story and I love it.
And how much did she get for that?
1.5 million.
There we go.
There you go, 1.5 million. She knew her worth.
Yeah.
And then the other story is Tinker Hatfield.
Okay.
This is a story about backing your value even if you've never done anything in that space before. Because Paula's example is, well, she knew her worth because she was a graphic designer and that was graphic design.
Yeah.
What if we're in a new space? It's a new job. Never done this before. New industry, new business. Tinker Hatfield was a corporate architect. And he obviously went to architecture school. He's working for Nike. Now in 1985, Nike is struggling as a business. Right? The stock price had declined, massive layoffs. They were struggling to get into the basketball market. They needed fresh talent. They hosted this 24-hour shoe design competition. And so Tinker Hatfield, this young guy, just designed something and he submits it and he wins.
Oh.
So 0 experience, he just won. The next day, they invite him to join the design team. So suddenly, he's now in the design team, 0 design experience.
Okay.
But then he started thinking, well, okay, yeah, I've never designed before, but what have I done? Well, I've studied architecture and I've studied buildings. And there was this one building he studied in architecture school called the Centre Pompidou in Paris. And it's like an inside-out building where everything that's usually inside, the structural, the mechanics, the elevators, they're all on the outside by design.
Okay.
And it's fun. People go and visit it. So he thought, why don't we use that idea and apply that to shoes? So he started sketching and he drew a Nike shoe with the swish. And then he put a hole in the heel so people can kind of see through it. And that became the Nike Air Max 1, which was this iconic sneaker. And Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike, credits Tinker Hatfield with saving them in the 80s.
Oh my God.
Right? So Tinker didn't allow the fact that he had 0 experience to get him to sit on his hands and wait for other people to take the lead. He thought, what qualities do I have? What ways of thinking do I have? What background do I have? And how can I bring those instincts to what I'm doing now? So anytime, anyone listening, anyone watching, if you are doing anything new, don't feel like you have nothing to add. You have a huge amount to add. You just have to tap into those essence qualities and bring them to the table. And that might mean, okay, I have a very steep learning curve ahead of me. That's fine. Bring your essence qualities, learn what you need to learn, hit the ground running. Don't allow the thought, I don't belong here, I don't know how to do this, to affect how you feel and then affect what you do. Create that separation, detach from it, and take the action anyway. Speak up, ask the question, contribute.
Wow, I love the stories. The power of cognitive divergence, right? Which we really undervalue, I feel like, in today's world. But wow, that was beautiful. Gosh.
I love little stories because I think they're so memorable. And now every time I see the Citibank logo, I'm like, Paula, that was Paula's work.
I heard a very similar story about this, which was, I think, it's probably elaborated. It's about Pablo Picasso.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Where he goes to the restaurant and then he doesn't pay and he draws something for them and they're like, this is not worth the dinner. And he was like, no, this is my whole life's work that made me draw something in 2 seconds for you. But no, I love that. That's really putting everything into perspective again. Are we done with the 4?
Yes.
We're done with the 4 now.
We've kind of given the overview of the 4.
What's my
yes,
profile?
Okay. So, well, I would suggest that let me ask you a few questions. Do you have an undercurrent of anxiety that leads to some overthinking, maybe at night?
100%.
Okay, great. So so that's kind of like low and conditional adaptability.
Yeah.
So your profile, we call it the anxious overachiever, where it's super common. It's extremely common in people who have achieved. And so many people can relate to this.
Yeah.
In fact, in the quiz that we've developed where people can do it online and then get a personalized report, we had like 3 beta testers. And someone completed it and got this exact profile. And then I sent her, like, here's what it means about you. And she's like, how did you know that? This is exactly me. So it's very insightful because it helps us understand more about us. Okay, so you are the anxious overachiever. The weaknesses or the challenges you have is this prioritization on other people.
Yeah.
Wanting to be approved of and liked. You, again, it's conditional. So if you're around people who like you, it's fine. But it's when they don't that you really feel it. You have no qualms in your abilities, which means you've been able to achieve amazing things in your business, setting this up, doing this podcast. You can approach people new totally fine, so long as they like you. But it can still be a little bit conditional depending on who you're with.
Right.
So if someone is, again, but you've been on this journey, but someone is trying to attack, oh, you're an influencer now or this or you might have some of that come back. Your autonomy is extremely high. So you simply focus on what you can do. That's your greatest strength.
Okay.
You just, again, you don't complain. You don't have blame towards other people or resentment or frustration. You just get on with what you need to get on with. And the great thing about this one is this is also a predictor of really happy relationships.
Oh.
Yeah, because you focus more on you and what you can do and also the other person assuming they also do the same. But it's that undercurrent of anxiety that's fueling that desire to people please and that desire to seek approval. And so if you can develop strategies to work on that anxiety
Mm-hmm.
and then also separate the thought from the action and the feeling, you're going to absolutely soar.
Wow. Well, this felt like therapy.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
This felt like proper therapy. But listen, I'm going to ask you a question because you've obviously spent a long amount of time on, working on yourself, rewiring your own brain, and now you're helping millions around the world to do the same. But, one thing that happens, there's the bucket of crabs phenomenon that happens, right? Where it's like when someone is trying to get out, where you start to work on yourself, you start to feel like people around you have something to say about it. So then how do you approach this? Because one thing I've been experiencing personally, I've heard people experience, is that whenever you are changing in life for the better, where you're working on yourself, you do get judgment. And sometimes you no longer fit in circles that you used to fit in, but you haven't reached the next circle where you're meant to reach. So how do you approach this?
This is so incredibly common, and it keeps so many of us stuck. Because we want other people to be happy with us, especially our loved ones and our families. And we don't want to evolve so much that they don't recognize us anymore. And so what we hear a lot of, what I heard a lot of when I was on this journey is, you've changed. You've changed. And it's never coming from a positive connotation.
No.
It's always a negative. You are not the person that I thought you were. And that doesn't feel good for someone who is also a recovering people pleaser. You often then want to prove them wrong. No, I'm the same, I swear, look.
I'm still the same.
Yeah, and then you might revert to old ways of thinking and behaviors because you want to make them feel more comfortable. So what we've learned is that whenever someone is saying you've changed, don't take it personally. It's a reflection of them. You have outgrown the mold that they kept you in, that little bucket, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And it could be because your growth is shining a spotlight on ways that they have not grown. Your growth is making them feel insecure. They feel like they no longer can relate to you. That's their journey, not yours. So the best response in those moments we found is 3 words. Thanks for noticing. You've changed. Thanks for noticing. And then you can throw on a follow-up, which is, growth has been a priority for me. Or I've been really working on this. You instantly flip it into a positive. You take what otherwise is undercutting and turn it into a compliment, which makes you feel better, because growth should be the point, right?
Right.
If you're not changing, you're not growing, that's a problem. It also allows them to start thinking differently about their observation and give them permission to acknowledge, hey, well, if that growth was a priority for this person and they've changed, maybe I can make growth a priority for me and I can change too. So that's one thing to keep in mind, the power of thanks for noticing. The other one is, when you're evolving and moving in these different circles, you have to get really good at being in the middle of 2 and not fitting, because it happens. And when you're in that middle stage, so you've outgrown your current circle, you're not yet in the next one, there's very few people there.
Right.
It might be a line, you and one other person, or you and your husband, like whatever it is. Just get comfortable being there. Know it's part of your journey of growth. That discomfort is not a sign that you should stop. In fact, it's a sign that you are stretching and you're growing and you should keep going. We know that when we experience discomfort, the brain takes it as a threat and wants to keep us safe, because discomfort requires a lot of metabolic energy, and part of the brain's job is to keep us surviving using the least amount of metabolic energy as possible. Discomfort is metabolically consuming. But we also know that when you're facing discomfort, it triggers the release of neurotropic factor in the brain, which are learning proteins. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we tap into this idea of neuroplasticity and create new pathways. So the way I like to think of it is, discomfort is the barrier, or rather, discomfort is the entry requirement for growth. So lean into it. Now, that doesn't mean you're constantly leaning into discomfort all the time, because you'll probably burn out. Have moments when you come back and you're like, I'm going to spend the day on my couch today.
Yes.
Or like for us ladies, knowing cyclically when is the right time to do that. But it is incredibly powerful when we can get better at doing that. And know that not everyone's going to be with you on your journey for every stage. Unfortunately, a lot of people I used to have in my circles are now not in my circles, and they've opted out. I keep reaching out to them. I don't know what's going on for them. So I'm still going to be the person that checks in with them and sees how they're doing, but they're not coming with me on the journey by choice. So it's going to happen. But the way you also can think about it is, every time you're upgrading yourself, you can upgrade your circle, and that's okay.
And that's okay. I think, honestly, the main learnings we're getting from this conversation is that discomfort is good.
Yes.
It's okay. It means it's a good sign. and also for us to stop chasing perfectionism because that is rooted in things that we should not be feeling anyway. And it's just accepting who we are, recognizing the whys under the whys, and then working towards how do we make it better for ourselves. But we've talked a lot about the professional aspect of life, right? And I think I know we're running out of time. We could have done this for like hours.
We could have done like a whole day and split it up, part 1, part 5.
Literally. But one thing I want to tell you personally from someone who didn't know you before now and I've been watching you is it's so refreshing to see someone like you who is like an ambitious woman doing what you want to do and chasing it in whatever imperfect way, but finding a way to get there. And the one thing that strikes me with you is how you've managed to do everything in life, right? Personal and professional. I know you keep your life very private, but you have a very balanced life. And I think a lot of ambitious women in today's time are being told that you have to make a choice. You can't have it all. And maybe you can't have it all at the same time. But there is that question of ambitious women. It's hard to find a man that will be supportive. But I know that you even proposed to your husband. And I know that he's such an active part of the business, of the book, everything. So tell us, how did you, which lamp did you rub? Where do we find it?
I know. Where do we find more like him? No, I do believe that there's an element of being in the right place at the right time to meet the person that is eventually going to be the one that you have as your life partner.
Right.
If I wasn't there the night that I met him, I maybe never would. There's all these things that can happen. But I'm a big believer in being on the journey of growth, because if I had met him 10 years earlier, I probably wouldn't have recognized that he is the person I want to spend my life with, because I wouldn't have had enough life experience or been growing enough, or maybe he wouldn't have been interested in me because I wasn't, Commit to your own growth. Oh, I have this really nice exercise I like to share with people, and it's because I didn't do this, but I kind of wish I had. Write down your to-be list, which is all the qualities that you want to be, and then you want to write down your, like, what you're looking for in the other person list. What are all the qualities that you want in that other person? And then you need to have a look at both lists and make sure they're identical. Because you cannot attract what you are not. You cannot attract what... Now, I say that, and it sounds powerful, but the truth is you can. But I always like to be really pragmatic and think, if you want someone who is going to have this, this, and this, you be that first. Because then you will know when you meet them, and then they will probably also appreciate that they're meeting their equal.
Right.
That's so important, meeting your equal, whatever that means for each person is going to be different. But for me, it was values first. You know how they say opposites attract?
I was about to ask you, what about opposites attract?
Opposites attract, I think, because it's fun and it's different. But in terms of opposites lasting, it entirely, in my personal experience, comes down to values. Values. Because values get expressed in behavior and life choices. And if you're not aligned on those values pieces, there are going to be challenges that will arise. And sometimes it's really difficult to agree to disagree when it's a value. Like, oh, you're okay with lying? Well, I'm not. How do we agree to... You're okay with cheating that business person? I'm not. So if you can try and get to the values question, and again, you need to be aware, there are, I call it professed versus expressed values. What does that mean? Professed values are, that person that you meet who's constantly sharing about how they're so service-oriented and they want to create a bigger world and they're so patient and they know all of their values and they will share it. And then you're like, where in your life are you demonstrating these things? I don't see it. And so that's professed. Someone can say anything they want about who they think they are and what their values are. You need to look at how it's being demonstrated. Because that is the real measure of someone's character. The degree to which they translate their professed values into expressed values. And so for me, again, I think part of it was luck, part of it was divine intervention. I met somebody who finally, so my mom was always asking me, what are you looking for? And I didn't know. I actually didn't really know what I was looking for, and I couldn't even articulate it because I didn't know which values were more important to me. But then I met him, and the next day I called up my mom and I said, I've met someone that has the values of what I'm looking for. I didn't say I'm going to marry him because it wasn't like that. It was just, I finally met someone that has what I now know is what I wanted. And then thankfully I ended up marrying him. But that was not at all the intention initially. It was just, again, focusing on values, behaviors.
But it's crazy how many people don't even know what their values are.
Yeah.
When you ask people, what are your values? They're like, oh.
You know what the question is to help you? What are you willing to sacrifice? And what are you not willing to sacrifice? That's really helpful because it's almost like determine what you're not versus what you are. Sometimes it's easier than trying to figure out what you are.
Yeah.
So you could say, okay, well, let's say honesty. Would you be willing to lie for money? And if you would, then honesty is not your value.
No.
But if you wouldn't, then okay, that's one of your values.
Yeah.
Family. Would you be willing to leave your family for a month or 2 months and go off and have some amazing opportunity and then come back? If you would, okay, family might still be important, but it's not really a value.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's different. Maybe it's, no, I would go and do that because that's going to earn me a lot of money.
Help them.
It'll help them.
Yeah.
So again, that's just another way of expressing it. But when you can work through this way and you determine what am I willing to sacrifice versus what is a non-negotiable, that's how you determine your true values,
So,
in my view.
Of course. And so would you say that it is possible for ambitious women to find men that are supportive of their career?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And you must. It's not worth compromising unless if you are driven, if you have aspirations and you are not with someone who can support that, it's tricky to say this because there may be people who are in that position. You are always going to struggle. You're never going to feel like you're excelling and being everything that you can be. And for some women, they then recalibrate because they really do value the other values they have with, in alignment with that person. And they recalibrate and they might shrink a little and then they're content with that. And that's okay. But it's just making sure that you're not compromising. And you absolutely can find someone who is your equal, who can support you. And likewise, you can support them.
So, Shadé, what's next for you now? Tell us, when is the book coming out? Where can people find it?
So it'll be anywhere books are sold. You can grab it. We have a whole lot planned. One thing I would encourage anyone listening is if you resonated with this, do the free quiz. Figure out what your doubt profile is. Because it's just an insight into, this is why I'm overthinking. This is why that's so difficult. This is why I struggle to speak up in meetings. Or this is why I've been able to be successful. It's because I'm leaning on this even though that one's weak. So go on the website, shadezahrai.com/bigtrust. We'll link it there. But next for me, I only just finished the PhD last year. And the book...
And then you wrote a book.
Yeah, well, the book was during it. It was meant to be 3.5 years. It was more than 5.
You love writing, don't you?
Well, no. Now I've realized, it's funny. I wouldn't really claim I'm a writer. Let me rephrase that. I'm a writer by way of behavior. Yes, I wrote a book.
Sure.
But in terms of identifying with being a writer, being an author, it's not really something I identify with. Similar to content creation. I don't really identify with being a content creator. I create content, yes, but there's so many other things that are more closely aligned with who I am. So writing the book was really hard, I'll tell you this much. But I'm so proud of what it is because the feedback that people are sharing are, anyone who's had this opportunity to go through it and just those moments of insight. The thing with self-awareness, which is super interesting, is we think with self-awareness, life gets easier. It doesn't. Life actually gets more challenging, but it's so much better.
Yes.
Because then, yes, there's challenge, yes, there's discomfort, but we are growing like there's nothing else.
There's
because
problem solving as well
completely.
Now. Yeah.
And that's, with self-awareness, you need to make sure there is the problem solving piece too. Because otherwise, if you just end with the awareness, pretty challenging and dampening and disappointing. And there might be shame and guilt but then shift into, okay, no, how am I going to use this to be better, to improve, to take that next step, to create the life that I know I deserve and that I want for myself? I cannot believe that this is my life. I cannot believe that I get to do this. And I will acknowledge not everyone has the luxury of being able to pursue what they love.
Of course.
I'm so fortunate, touch wood.
Touch wood. Yeah.
Yeah, touch wood. Where's the wood? Touch the paper. I'm so fortunate I have had the privilege of being able to create a life that I love. And so now my role is just to help people get out of their own way so that they can create the life that they wish to lead. For some people, that's going to be staying in a corporate organization.
Yes.
I have a cousin who's like, how do you do what you do? I want to go to work, do my work, leave, and not think about it. So different people have different zones of genius and areas they enjoy. But if we can get out of our own way, stop being the ones blocking us, then we get to really tap into who am I, what do I want, what are my instincts? And that is a beautiful thing. And that's what we call big trust, the state of big trust, where it's no longer you doubting yourself that defines your decisions and who you are. It's you fully trusting you can do whatever you want. And then you have to figure out, well, what is that?
Final question
Yeah.
that we ask everyone. What's your biggest dream?
My biggest dream is that people are able to live lives where they can achieve whatever happiness and growth and fulfillment looks like for them. And they no longer feel like they are living for other people or under the oppressive thumb of people pleasing or the need for validation or all of those weights that we carry. And so much of the work that I do is really to help people do that, to be the one that believes in them when no one else does, to give them tools to help them work through that. Because I genuinely believe that when we trust ourselves more, we trust other people more. And when we trust other people more, that's when we can truly come together in unity. And when we come together in unity, that's when we can have a huge impact on fundamentally improving the world.
Shadé, it's been an absolute pleasure.
This has been so much fun, really.
You know how they say, don't meet your heroes. This was incredible. Honestly, you're as warm, as eloquent as you are online.
Oh,
and it's
thank
been
you.
such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait for the success of the book.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we'll do so much more together in the
I can't
future.
wait. I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.